Great Scott. Great Scott. Great Scott.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Great Scott. I'm Scotty V. Thanks for watching. Even though I'm a week late as far as the bulletin is concerned, where we talked about the kind of plot reveals and photos that were in Entertainment Weekly as of last week, I thought I'd talk about it this week. I want to talk about it now! Henry Cavill did say in the Entertainment Weekly magazine that, and we'd heard this before, as far as the Superman individual character is concerned, this isn't a straight-up sequel to Man of Steel. It's more of an introduction to Batman, the Justice League, the world of DC Comics outside of Man of Steel, but a continuation of the universe that was presented in Man of Steel. And what I find cool about that is, as we've talked about before, as much of a failure people want to paint Man of Steel as being, as much of a horrible filmmaker people want to paint Zack Snyder as being, DC has decided to go with him. DC has decided to go with his vision of the universe. DC has decided to continue that vision of that universe in films down the line. And based on that vision, based on that universe, based on the continuation that's happening here, we're going to get Justice League, and Suicide Squad, and Green Lantern, and Cyborg, and Flash, and Wonder Woman, and all these other movies that are all still based in the Man of Steel universe. There are things people didn't like. One of the things people didn't like about Man of Steel was the apparent collateral damage that was caused by Superman's throwdown with Zod. I still maintain that most of the damage and most of the supposedly hundreds of thousands of deaths that would have occurred during this battle happened because of Zod's world engine, happened because he was going to terraform the entire planet. Did Superman not get in the battle with him and stop him, humanity would all be destroyed. So, in turn, if some people did die because of this war, because of this maniac, because of this person that was terraforming the planet and destroying buildings in the city, and even if there were some collateral in the fight, although the building that they ran into was empty, the one that fell down because of them fighting, the building that the Daily Planet staffers were running from was knocked down because of the world engine, which Superman had nothing to do with. You can go all the way back and say, well, if Superman wasn't here, if Superman didn't activate the scout ship, if Superman didn't do all this, then Zod wouldn't have seen him and Zod wouldn't have come here. But Zod's purpose for coming here was to terraform the planet. He wanted Superman to join him, but join him in destroying humanity. Superman decided that wasn't going to happen. They had a fight. There was a lot of damage. There was a lot of damage caused by the world engine, but they're going to address that in Batman v Superman. What I found interesting when I was reading it, and some people have pointed out to me that Snyder is now saying that he was going to have a crate of kryptonite delivered to Wayne Manor at the end of Man of Steel in a credit sequence. And we've heard before, the DC powers that be have said, we don't do that. That's Marvel's thing. We don't have end credit sequences. Our movies are more serious. They're more realistic. They're more gritty. They're more dark. A lot of people don't like that. But the truth is, it is a different feel. The Marvel movies, while fun and while make lots and lots of money, and more so far than the DC Universe movies, are much more goofy. There's a lot of comedy in it. There's a lot of camaraderie. There's a lot of Hulk punching Thor across the room. There's a lot of goofiness while people are dying outside in an alien invasion. There wasn't any of that in Man of Steel. There were a couple of comedic beats, as there are in any movie, but it's much more darker, much more gritty, much more realistic, and that seems to be what's happening with Batman v Superman, though we haven't seen it yet. The real idea that people would react differently. Some would love the idea of a Superman, some would hate the idea of a Superman. Many are going to be angry with Superman just because of what happened the last time he was in a big battle, and a lot of people are never going to get over it. Loved ones they're going to know will have died in that battle, whether it was directly Superman's fault or not, and it's very realistic that people would have that type of reaction. What a lot of fans will complain about is the filmmakers didn't need to put him in that position, didn't need to set Superman up to be the guy that could be blamed, or to be the guy that people could hate. But we are in a skeptical world, and we are in a position where if that sort of thing really did happen, these kinds of reactions would be caused by it. Some other things they talked about in the article is Wonder Woman coming to the forefront. She's going to have a very important role to play in this movie, they say, and that's good. Hopefully it's bringing these guys together. Another thing that's great about that is she makes mention that she thinks it's long overdue that a female heroine gets to head up a movie, a superhero. Long overdue. It's never been done. So the fact that it's happening is great. There have been female-driven Wonder Woman, I think is the only one I can think of, on TV. It's going to be Supergirl now. But a movie franchise, sure, Black Widow's in the other ones, Scarlet Witch is in the other ones, but they haven't headed up their own film. And if they do it right, I think a Wonder Woman film could be great. I love her costume. I love how she looks. A lot of people have talked about her being too small and too skinny. If you look at most comic book interpretations of Wonder Woman, she's tall, but she's lanky and thin. She has some fitness to her, but she's not a big, muscle-bound Amazon, as people use the word. I think it doesn't necessarily mean giant, and clearly not here. And in most, as I say, comic book interpretations, she's kind of lithe and muscular, but muscular in a fit way, not big and thick. The other thing that I read was the skeptical scene between Bruce and Alfred sounds really great. When I saw it in the trailer, it's what I thought it was. It's that this is what turns good men cruel. The idea that he's going to preemptively strike a guy who appears to be here to help, even if some terrible things happened while he was helping, because he was fighting a maniac who was bent on destruction of the earth. Alfred is skeptical of Bruce's reasons and what that means for his morality and if he's correct or not. And it sounds like Bruce is going to preemptively strike against Superman. Now, Superman may go there because he's been lured there by Batman because of something Batman makes him think he does. But he's still the one that is seeking this altercation, is what it sounds like. We haven't seen it yet. Another thing that was mentioned, we pointed out when the pictures of the building that we thought was Wayne Manor surfaced before, we thought, is this going to be kind of a derelict Wayne Manor, a Wayne Manor that was used years ago and hasn't been in a long time? In this article, they do talk about it, the windowless, derelict Wayne Manor in the background. It's real, it was built, they found this building and then they built a set around it and everything. So some of those theories are true. It's going to be a broken down Wayne Manor for some reason. I'm sure we'll find out why as we move forward. But probably the most interesting thing in the article was that when the guys were sitting down to suss out who was going to be the villain of the Man of Steel sequel, which was what this was originally supposed to be, according to this article, they thought of Metallo probably was going to be the villain because Brainiac was too early. They didn't want to do another alien invasion. And then Snyder says that he suggested, what if at the end of the movie, and by reading it, it seems like he's talking about this movie, because it wasn't going to be a Batman v Superman movie at first, what if at the end of the movie we have a box of kryptonite delivered to Wayne Manor? That would then set up a Batman v Superman movie next, and then it sounds like that's when they decided to switch it over. How about instead of a straight sequel, we do a Batman v Superman movie? I still have the theory that Warner Brothers made him do this because they wanted to make sure this movie was more successful than Man of Steel, and they thought by introducing Batman they could do that. But the idea that they were trying to think of villains for this movie, and while trying to think of villains and who could go up against our hero, Zack Snyder said, what if kryptonite was delivered to Wayne Manor? Which to me speaks volumes. I could be wrong. But based on the fact that it sounds like he's going to preemptively strike against Superman, who's only trying to do good, and that even Alfred is skeptical because it's a preemptive strike, and it's a decision that could really teeter him one way or the other, makes him the villainous figure. Doesn't necessarily mean he's evil, but he's the one attacked. He's the one on shaky moral ground, from what this sounds like, and he's the one that they thought of when they were trying to come up with who would be the villain for the next film. Thanks everybody for watching, and remember, always look up in the sky. Another thing that was mentioned was, I don't know what I was going to say.